Good morning, I'm Julio Saenz along with Mauricio Riveros. Today we'll meet Arnold Smeenk of ARC Properties LLC.
We hope you will be inspired.
Celebrating leaders in Rochester's unique and vibrant business community, we'll meet entrepreneurs whose passion and perseverance have helped push through life's challenges. Join us as we share their stories and journeys to success. It's time to be inspired.
Arnold, thank you very much for being in Be Inspired, a show that we have developed to inspire our community, to interview people like you who have done great things in our community, and today we have really the honor to have you here. So tell us a little bit about who is Arnold.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. I guess my quick answer would be I'm a problem solver. That's what I look at my job in life today is. But I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, a businessman, but most importantly, I'm a Christ follower. And at this point in my life, that's what our main focus is trying to serve the Lord and do things that He would want us to do in the community and in the home.
That is wonderful, Arnold. I really love that aspect of you. And so tell us a little bit about your story. You are born in Rochester, in this area, or where you have been born. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, I was born here in the Rochester area. My parents were immigrants. They came over on the boat in 1952, and my father was a manual laborer. He was a maintenance man and worked in a factory for a bit, and then ultimately ended up painting houses for a living. My father-in-law was a union carpenter, so my wife and I actually met in 8th grade history class, and we started dating in 9th grade, and I really did get to marry my high school sweetheart. Growing up with a large family, we had 7 kids in the family, and a manual laborer as a father. It was very tight financially, but my parents both taught us to work hard, to be honest, have integrity, and you know, put in a full day's work for the pay. And that's what really all 7 of the kids did. I was met by Jesus Christ just shortly after we were married in 1976, and that had a profound impact on my life and changed the direction of our life. And there was a sermon shortly after I got to meet the Lord that had a tremendous impact on our life. And the pastor asked, "What have you done for Jesus this week?" So you came to Sunday school, you came to church, big deal. What have you done for him? And he pointed out that there's 168 hours in a week, and if we tithe our time, that would be 16.8 hours. Have you done anything close to that in the service of others? And that got my wife and I really thinking, and started on a journey that here we are 45 years later. I think we're, you know, looking back, we've done some pretty good things and accomplished a few things for the Lord. So.
You were telling us a little bit before the show about how you used to work in the banking industry, and then that in a sideways kind of way ended up leading to your current business.
Yes, actually I started as a broker, brokering loans to banks, and in the late 80s lost my job 4 times because of craziness in the banking world, and finally got hired by the First National Bank of Maryland, 500 miles away, as the loan production officer for upstate New York. And I said to my wife, you know, this job might last a year, might last 5 years. We need to start preparing for the day after the bank lets me go. So let's tighten the belt, live frugally, and invest whatever commissions we might get, and start buying some commercial real estate. So we bought a little apartment building and a little office building, and gradually over the years, each time we got a commission check, we invested that in real estate, and God has blessed that tremendously. And today there's a sizable portfolio of apartments in upstate New York that help to pay the bills.
Well, that's very powerful, and what a great story. And what would be the message for the next generation? Because I really like your vision about, hey, be be fruitful, be careful, and have the vision where you want to go. So what will be the message for that next generation that is coming, to take more responsibilities in our nation?
Well, I think the first thing people need to do is stop expecting others to do things for us. To have a handout with the expectation of others putting things in our hands is not the right attitude. Everything that we have is a blessing from above, and if we have the mindset that this is all a gift from God, then to be able to work for ourselves and to accomplish things on our own without like an entitlement attitude, I think is very strong. Our parents brought us up to believe that God has given us the ability to work and go and work. And through my study in Scripture, I came to the realization that we're told to render unto Caesar the things that are his and render unto God the things that are God's. And I took that to mean that if I'm paid to work a 40-hour week, I need to put in at least 40 hours of work. And my experience in the working environment was most people goof off, countless hours in a week and maybe are putting in 30 hours a week. And I committed myself early in our career to not do that. If I goofed off for an hour, I'd work an extra hour at night to make up for it. So I can honestly say when I left the bank, they certainly got their full 40-hour weeks from me.
Being in the business of investing and having and owning houses and renting, it's a lot of people who think about those things. And what are your recommendations? People are putting a lot of money. They are basically putting everything, all your savings on that thing. And then, they buy maybe in the wrong place.
Yeah.
They don't have the return. The people who are renting are not paying the rent. All those struggles. What would be your recommendation with the experience that you have?
Well, it's really not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a lot of things that have gone wrong. There's been some, middle of the night phone calls that I wish we didn't get, problems at properties, and you really can't invest with money that's at risk. If you can't afford to lose the money, you have no business investing in real estate. And when we started, we were not in that boat. We were investing money I couldn't afford to lose, but we were fortunate, worked through a couple of issues early on. But today I would say it's very difficult to be a landlord. The calls you get are always at the worst time. I mean, even a simple thing like a tenant lost their keys and can't get in the apartment, which I get regularly from one of my tenants. It's always at an inopportune time. And you got to drop everything and go take care of it. It can be expensive. It can be profitable if it's done right, but a lot of people I counsel with and meet with have the illusion that it's going to be a get-rich-quick scheme and they should do it. I've learned the hard way that get-rich-quick schemes do not work. And it's just the slow and steady and honest work that prospers.
And you mentioned partnerships. Tell us a little bit about how you acquire property with partners, and how do you pick a good partner?
Well, every partner I'm in business with I've known for many years, many times going back a couple of times, a couple generations, where I did business with the father and now the kids are taking over. And I know that they have honesty is forefront, doing the right thing is paramount, and they have good work ethics themselves. I was in one partnership where, although he had the good traits that I was looking for, honesty, integrity, and committed to trying to do the right thing, he just didn't have the financial resources to do something. So if we wanted to fix a problem and do it right, and we each had to kick in $10,000 to help the partnership do something, he didn't have the money and wanted to try and do a Band-Aid approach instead of fixing it the right way. So there can be problems even with the best of partners and best intention of partners.
So now, Arnold, one of the concerns that I always have, being also in the industry, is we are living this beautiful momentum right now. It's a great, the economy is still strong. But we know at some point will come something, right? What's the reality? What's your perspective as an investor? There is a lot of apartments right now. The offer probably is growing significantly. What's your take around that?
Well, I think there's areas that are very stable. Most of our apartments are in the affordable space. Some of them are subsidized, you know, for the very low income, but everything else, even the market rate ones, are in an affordable space, so they're not high-end luxury. I would be very cautious in the high-end luxury space today because there's so much overbuilding, and there will be another downturn, maybe not a recession, but at least a downturn. And the people who will immediately be impacted are those that own the high-end luxury apartments. When the tenants get to a point where they're really struggling financially, they can always move back home or move in with a friend, but then the landlord gets stuck with empty units. So in our space where our price point is very affordable, there's minimal concern of that because people always have to have a place to live. But on the high-end space where people are spending too much of their money on rent, it's going to be a problem when we have a downturn.
Well, thank you, Arnold. We'll be back with more after these messages. What are the big differences between investing in rental property for commercial versus residential?
Well, I think the big thing is when you're dealing with commercial, you're typically dealing with fewer tenants. So some people like that. When you're dealing with multifamily, you've got, you know, for the 100-unit apartment, you've got 100 tenants, and you've got to keep renting. If you've got a commercial property, there's less of that. You've got a more experienced person on the commercial side that's your business, you know, that you're doing business with. Typically, the commercial tenants are professionals and they know what to expect from a landlord. They know how to act as a tenant. It's a little less certainty when you're doing multifamily. On the plus side, a lot of people would feel more comfortable just talking to their neighbor as opposed to talking to a big business owner that's got a store or whatnot. I have done some commercial in the past, and I have some investments in the commercial space, but most of mine now is in multifamily because I'm not particularly optimistic about office or retail. So if you exclude those two sides of the commercial space, it's almost not worth getting into. Most of my investments in the commercial space are in single tenant credit lease type deals, which is very successful.
But I love your wisdom. I love the capacity to, you know, establish these basic principles that we know where they come from, you know, and those are very important principles that are Christian principles, values that are fundamental in terms of the decision making. But Arnold, one of the challenges that we have today is society is changing. The principles can overcome anything that change. But what would be your message today for people who are struggling, who are in that situation of depression and difficulty, and maybe they have invested and they maybe went bankruptcy? What will be the message for them?
Well, I can only tell them what I went through when I was in that space in the early 90s. I was listening to the radio and Larry Burkett, Your Money Matters, was on. And he had as his guest Sir John Templeton, the billionaire who had started the Templeton Scholarship or Award for it's kind of the Nobel Peace Prize of religion. And Larry Burkett asked him, what faith do you have and what do you subscribe to? And John Templeton's answer was, I don't subscribe to any particular faith. I pick a little here, little there, little there. And then Larry Burkett said, but you've amassed this tremendous wealth. How have you done that? And his quick answer, I have applied biblical principles of finance to my money. And I was desperate for money, looking out for all the quick, get-rich-quick schemes. And here I'm listening to John Templeton tell me that biblical financial principles are what made him wealthy. And I thought, boy, he doesn't believe in my faith, but he's using my faith principles. I believe in my faith, but I'm not following biblical financial principles. And my wife and I sat down and talked about that, and we made a commitment to live biblically, to live within our means, not spend more than we could afford, to tithe, to give back to God, to walk in our business manner more closely with God, being more ethical, more honest, and have integrity. And most importantly, to just scale things back and live within our means. We made a decision to live on the base salary that I was making and not live on the base plus commissions. So any commissions that we got after that, we were able to invest, some in real estate and some in heavenly gifts that we were able to do. We started a foundation, and through the profits of the company and some other profits and some fundraising that we've done, we've been able to help quite a few of the ministries in the area through the foundation that we've created. So that's been a real blessing, and really that's what my number one focus is today. The profits from the apartments. A lot of that goes right into the foundation to continue that kind of work.
And so this foundation sounds really interesting. What are some of the projects that you've funded through that?
Well, we just provided a playground for Rochester Christian School. You know, I said at the beginning, I'm a problem solver. They brought me in to just kind of walk around and give them some ideas. I've been on the board at Charles Finney School for 20 years, and when I stopped in at Rochester Christian School for some things, they said, geez, do you have any ideas and what can we do? So I did some brainstorming, and one of the things that my wife and I noticed was that the playground they had there was very outdated, somewhat unsafe, and really needed an upgrade. And we provided a new playground for the kids there. I think one of the other things that's really remarkable that we were able to do through the foundation was we started a crisis pregnancy type center for Corning. My daughter lived in Corning, and we went to visit her regularly, and I'd drive past the Planned Parenthood office on the way to her house, and I asked her one day, where's the Christian version of that, the CareNet or the crisis pregnancy or something? And she said, I don't know, I don't think there is one. So we made a few phone calls, talked to the Pregnancy Resource Center in Bath, and they said, we've been praying for somebody to take some notice of Corning. At the time, Corning was the largest city in New York State without a Christian alternative. And we partnered with the Pregnancy Resource Center of the Valley in Bath to open up a center in Corning. We provided 50% of the funding and some ongoing support, and they provided staffing. I helped them with lease negotiations and with the space that they rented, and 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, we opened the center there. And it's been thriving. It's been having impact in the community and outreach to the young women in crisis, pregnancies. So that's a beautiful thing.
Arnold, I love the holistic approach. Clearly you as a leader, as an investor, as a person of faith, you touch every single element when we do this 360 review on your life. And what will be the thankfulness? Of course, first will be God, I know, but what will be the thankfulness to mentors and people? This is your opportunity to say in the show, a thank you to that people who have invested in you.
Well, I think looking back on it, I've had a few people that I've worked for that have taken me under their wing. They saw in me perhaps somebody who would work harder than the next guy to get things done. So I do appreciate that. And some good spiritual leaders as well. And the one person who comes to mind very quickly is Norm Leanhouse of Home Properties. I met Norm back in 1992, and we had business dealings over the next decade, and then we worked together on the board at Charles Finney School for over a decade. And he brought me in to consult when he started up his Broadstone business, and actually asked me to be one of his first investors. And I appreciated his friendship and his mentorship and his leadership as a Christian leader in the community.
Arnold, what a great interview. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for giving back to the community and bringing those good news and good investments to a community that I believe will be transformed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next week, we'll sit down with Erica Cornier, the Vice President of Strategic Planning for the New York and New Jersey Minority Supplier Development Council. To watch today's episode and the complete interviews of our guests, go to rochesterfirst.com/beinspired. For more great talk with Rochester's entrepreneurs, listen to Poder 97.1, Saturdays at 9 a.m. For Mauricio Riveros, I'm Julio Saenz. We'll see you next week on Be Inspired.